and the CEO of Onnit Labs, Jason Havey, who was also the CEO of Black Swan Yoga, which Onnit owned, came to me and said, I need you to step in. Will you come in and take over as president of Black Swan? And that was right when COVID hit. And I was like, hell no.
I haven't done this in months, so it's a little rusty. And I've been talking in Spanish for months too, so my English is getting worse.
I was, if I was in middle school, maybe I could remember Spanish. We could talk in Spanish.
There you go.
It's been that long.
I mean, I definitely can't talk in Spanish fluently in any capacity. So, yeah, we're here today with Alex Earle. So I feel like I met you at pickleball a couple of years ago, which checks out for your daily habits.
Yeah.
So CEO of Onnit, Black Swan. Are you CEO of anything else? Am I missing anything?
I would call it a consultative CEO for Fit for Service.
Okay, also that too. Okay, so we got 3.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, sweet. I mean, we can kind of dive into your background a little bit. I really want to get into Onnit, the backstory and how you got involved with that.
Yeah.
How it ties into Black Swan, how it's not related to Onnit Labs anymore, the whole gambit.
Yeah.
But I guess if to get started, like, would you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm a pretty kind of normal guy.
I think,
I was born and raised in the Midwest in Ohio.
Okay.
Grew up in a very loving family, have an older brother, older sister. My parents have been together for now almost 60 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And thankfully, I say this because I'll explain later, but athletics and sports was something that like I was drawn to at an early age. And so I grew up playing soccer, tennis, and golf. And that was one of the things my dad specifically was always saying, like, if we can afford it and if this is something that we can provide, we would love to be able to, expose you to some level of sport. When being exposed to that and then finding what I had an affinity for, I was drawn to soccer and tennis. And so I started to play those two sports pretty competitively from a young age, all the way up through college, basically. But I'm thankful for that because when I was 16, I got ripped out of my life that I knew it at that time. I was in Ohio, loving life. And then my mom and dad came to me and said, hey, we're moving to Austin, Texas.
Oh, I didn't realize you've been here that long. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I moved right in between my sophomore and junior year of high school, which arguably for anyone,
super important.
A pivotal time in your childhood and your adolescence and growing up. And
like sport team-wise too, like the athletics, like,
all of it. Yeah. And I mean, so like the life that I knew and thought that I was going to have as I got older, I always thought like, oh, I'll live up in the Midwest and I'll go to college up here and this is kind of life. And there are certain values up there, that are slightly different than other parts of the country. And so, out of the blue, because my dad worked in kind of the corporate world and he got a job offer they just couldn't refuse. And so he said, hey, we're moving to Texas in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the hell? This is terrible, man.
Yeah.
And so, came down to Austin, and over the summer, I had the opportunity to try out for the tennis team, the soccer team. And it was through that, thankfully, that, I had been playing those sports. I made the teams. I met people. I was able to get integrated into high school here in Austin well before school even started. So, moving to Austin ended up being a blessing in disguise. Like I've lived here since I moved here when I was 16. I'm 43 now.
I was going to ask, you look so young. I was like, I know you're older than me. And I was like, I know you're not 50 and I know you're not like 35. So I was like, cool. We got to it.
So 16, high school, went to University of Texas.
Oh yeah.
Played some, and wasn't good enough to make the teams, the tennis team there. But continued I taught tennis at local country clubs. I constantly was staying involved in athletics so it ended up being amazing. And so when I after college, was trying to figure out, well, what the hell am I going to do with my life?
Mm.
My brother and my mom, my dad, and I will never forget. It's right when I was about to graduate from UT. My brother was finishing his PhD from Emory University in biochemistry, and he had been freelance writing for Men's Health magazine. And this is back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And my dad had kind of semi-retired, and it was like a Thanksgiving break or something. They were like, let's go into business together.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I'm a, poor college grad, thinking maybe law school, thinking maybe I'll go find a job somewhere. Really not much of a plan.
Yeah.
And my brother said, you know what, the magazine business, is pretty fascinating. I'm learning a lot in men's health, and it just so happened that my brother and I befriended a woman that had a little magazine called Austin Fit.
Cool. I had that question written down. Cool. Okay.
So we met her out at like a bar or something,
Yeah.
and she was moving and trying to figure out what to do with this thing. Now, it was a little tiny publication she did all on her own.
Mm-hmm.
But was successful for her. And so, long story short, we ended up buying the rights to the name from her, my parents, my brother and I, and took this thing over. And she moved to Dallas, and we ended up trying to figure out how to run a magazine.
Yeah.
Free monthly publication, advertiser revenue was the name of the game for us. That's how that business worked. So I went out and tried to sell ads. I was terrible too. I mean, cold calling.
My least favorite.
And I have so much respect for anybody.
For sure.
Been in outside sales and done that. It's, it's a numbers game, but it's also, some people naturally have the ability to be comfortable in that situation.
Just take a hit and just keep going. Like, that didn't bother me. It bothers me.
Yeah. Like, people would say no, and I'd be like, "What's wrong with me?"
Exactly.
But that's what I did. I mean, I was responsible for trying to generate ad revenue for the magazine. My brother would focus more on the editorial side, but we all kind of wore a lot of different hats. Every once in a while, I'd help on the editorial. We fumbled about in design. I mean, back then it was, I think, cork,
like clip art and that kind of stuff.
Well, it wasn't clip art, but it was like Quark, I think, which was a design program, if I'm not mistaken. And then I remember when we upgraded to like Adobe InDesign. It was like the big deal, right?
Yeah.
And we turned what was, a 52-page newsprint, black and white kind of, little magazine into a 124+ page, perfect bound, high gloss, incredibly successful magazine in its own right for a period of time.
Wait, what are you talking about for 124 pages? Like was it just each page was like a different high school team? Like, what is?
So Austin Fit magazine was a community health and fitness publication that all we did was talk about the scene in Austin.
Gotcha. Everything
that had to do with, the gyms in town, the trainers, the running clubs, the races, the doctors, any business that had a slant on wellness.
Gotcha.
We were interviewing in our heyday, I mean, people like Willie Nelson, who's a huge runner.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andy's like a black belt. I'll never forget. We went to his ranch in Austin for a photo shoot, and he was on the cover of one of our issues. And we went to his ranch, and we rolled up. And this is off. He lives up. His ranch is up off 71 near Pace Bend, and he was awesome. He first he came down on his dirt road on a mountain bike.
Okay.
Which you would never think Willie Nelson's going to come rolling down on a mountain bike. And he had like Adidas like track pants on.
Okay.
Which again, you'd be like, oh man, Willie, you're really ruining my image.
Yeah.
And like New Balance, like,
that's crazy.
Like dad running shoes.
Yeah.
Came down and met us in his town. He had a town built on his ranch that was a movie set, like an old Western.
Oh,
old Western.
I was thinking like people living there kind of thing. Yeah.
No. This old Western had a church. It had a saloon. It
Wow.
had like, all a general store. And he met us in the saloon, and we did the interview, and our photographer was there, and he spent the whole afternoon with us.
That's so cool.
Unbelievable. And he had, while we're sitting there talking, he was telling us about how I think it was karate. He was a black belt in karate, and could still like do the kicks. And this was, He had to have been in his 70s or maybe early
How
80s.
old is he? He's got to be like 90 something.
Yeah, he's in his 90s, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
And it was fascinating. But so the magazine afforded us an opportunity, and for me in my young career, to get exposed to um, all facets of business. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we were doing, the financing, the accounting, the marketing, I mean, at one point we had a sales team, we had
Yeah.
writers, so it became this little business. And
Like
so,
startups before startups were startups.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. And I'm incredibly grateful for my dad. My dad was this kind of North Star.
Mm-hmm.
He knew so much from his career on every facet of running a business, and so I got kind of like a MBA,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of on the fly
Yeah.
by doing this. So from I was in that business for 10, 15 years.
Very cool.
And
Wow.
and then at one point we expanded into other markets and opened magazines in Nashville. We created an events business, and we launched a combine style fitness competition called Austin's Fittest.
I didn't have any of this stuff.
Yeah, man. So,
Yeah.
people who might be listening to this who may have known of Austin Fit, they probably remember Austin's Fittest, but this was a fitness event. We did an issue about who are the fittest people in Austin. That was for the magazine.
Yeah.
And it used to be like a popularity contest.
Oh,
People
for sure.
voted who they thought
Exactly.
it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
And I said, well, what about we do something where we actually test people's fitness?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's actually see who the fittest is,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just based on who garners the most attention and
Mm-hmm.
votes. So I worked with an incredible woman, Diane Vivas, who had done a lot of consulting on NFL combines and just an expert in that. And she and I developed these 10 fitness tests
Very
that
cool.
then we went to Camp Mabry off Mopac, that
Okay.
military
Yeah,
base,
yeah.
that field you see from the highway that's got the airplanes in it.
Okay.
We went to Camp Mabry and begged them to let us use that field to host this fitness event.
Mm-hmm.
And we put up these 10 tests, which were things like the 40-yard dash, the mile. We did a 5-10-5 agility cone drill.
Mm-hmm.
We created these tests that measured different aspects of physical fitness:
Mm-hmm.
speed, agility, endurance, even focus. We got into like coordination type
Cool.
tests.
So you guys do strength at all?
Strength, yeah. We did upper body power, lower body power. We did things like a kneeling med ball throw.
Oh,
and it
cool.
was distance.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
So for about almost 10 years, we ran that event.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, the magazine industry, the publishing industry was starting to really change. Social media became the name of the game.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't equipped to compete from an ad dollar perspective to provide the same value that social media and online advertising was with print advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And so as time went on, Aubrey Marcus, the founder of Onnit Labs, who he and I had known each other, both grew up in Austin, actually went to the same high school. But we really didn't get to know each other until we were both running, our own companies.
Mm-hmm.
He and I, just kind of befriended one another, and over time he got wind of these events that I was producing, and one day he said, "Hey man, you should come work for me at Onnit." And this was in like 2017 or something like that. And the magazine industry was tough, and working with families tough. That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But so I said, yeah, man, I think I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
And, ended up working, taking a job at Onnit, and wore a lot of different hats. I came in originally to overhaul their event strategy. They ended up acquiring that event, the Fittest, that I created. So we continue to run it, but it was owned by Onnit. I started to help Aubrey build a number of different events, whether that was live podcasts, whether it was retreats that he was hosting, jiu-jitsu tournaments, Black Swan Yoga that was hosting community events. So I kind of oversaw all that. We were doing well over 100 events a year.
Crazy.
When I first came in. And then my role shifted when COVID hit. Black Swan Yoga was going through an enormous amount of change, obviously with COVID. negatively impacting the business, but then some personnel things were going on. And the CEO of Onnit Labs, Jason Havey, who was also the CEO of Black Swan Yoga, which Onnit owned, came to me and said, I need you to step in. Will you come in and take over as president of Black Swan? And that was right when COVID hit, and I was like, hell no.
That sounds terrible. Yeah, you go.
I was like, dude, this is tough.
Scapegoat.
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, and he's like, I need you. You've you know business. You've been involved, like, and it's COVID, and like, you're not that busy. Like, come on. And I'm like, okay. And at that time, Unilever was sniffing about trying to acquire Onnit Labs. So there was also this like, well, what's going to happen to the company, and what's going to happen to Black Swan?
And this is pre-Onnit Gym, right? Or no?
Yeah,
like early.
Yeah. So kind of the backstory. Onnit Labs, Black Swan Yoga was originally founded in 2009 by a guy.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that old. Okay.
Yeah, by Mike Gray. Mike Gray ended up selling the company to Onnit Labs in 2015, I believe.
Okay.
Don't quote me. Onnit Labs, Aubrey started, I believe, in 2010 or 11.
Okay.
With the supplements, really, Alpha Brain, and so when I was there, by the time I came in, Onnit Labs had 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, a franchise, and owned one. It had Onnit Gym, which Onnit Gym had been open. They opened in 2014.
Gotcha.
They had Black Swan Yoga. They had my event, Austin's Fittest. They had big partnership with Exos, a physical therapy training company. They had a lot of these other things that helped support the entire company, the ecosystem. And so, but come COVID and then Unilever coming in to look at acquiring Onnit Labs, Unilever came in and said, well, we want this, and not that. And they were referring to a few things. They didn't want Black Swan Yoga. They didn't want 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, but Unilever wanted to keep the gym.
What about Austin's Fittest, though?
Austin's Fittest was actually, that's a funny question. Dude, honestly, I don't even think that was part of the deal.
You're like, hey, don't
I think it's actually technically, and again, I don't know if anybody from Onnit may listen to this, but I dare I say, I think we regained ownership of it when Aubrey and I reacquired the gym in 2023.
It's just like a floating, forgotten entity.
Yeah, it kind of was. Well, because COVID hit and we couldn't host that event.
Yeah, of course.
We had, thousands of people that would come out to that thing. And, but with all that going on, I took over as president of Black Swan Yoga in the midst of COVID and did a number of things to try to right the ship. Financially, culturally, there were a lot of things that were kind of just kind of not that things needed to be shook up, but they were already shook up. And I felt like I needed to create a sense of transparency and calm and support to instructors and staff because of everything that had been going on. And so did that and then Unilever came in and swooped up and acquired Onnit Labs. In that process, they said, Black Swan Yoga's, something's going to happen to it. We're not going to take it on.
Yeah.
And so Aubrey, of course, said, well, I love Black Swan, I get it, So he, in the deal, acquired back Black Swan Yoga. And then I had a choice to make. I was offered to either stay on and do something with Onnit Labs Unilever. I didn't know what. That was the other thing. My role was like where I didn't know what, if anything, really I was going to have an opportunity to do. But then Aubrey was like, dude, bro, I need you. Like Black Swans, come on, let's go. Let's do this. And at that point I was so invested and I had spent so much time and loved it so much and really started to make a lot of progress with the company. We got it back to break even. In the midst of COVID, we reopened studios faster than most businesses during that time. We reinvigorated the membership model, which was struggling because I came from a business mindset of recurring revenue. How do you want to look in the future and kind of be like, okay, we can kind of bet on that. And Black Swan historically had been donation based. You just show up. And so there was enough volume of people coming in that kept it a healthy business, but it was, it's nerve wracking.
It is scary to because I mean, like, WeStrive's recurring, love that.
Yeah.
And then this studio is not recurring. So it's like we're growing every month, but then it's like I don't know what tomorrow is gonna like. People just might never book again. Like, bro.
Yeah, and that's the thought that goes in your head, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
Especially during COVID too. Yeah.
Yeah. And we dealt with that at the magazine. I mean, I had, a client list of, hundreds of clients, let's say, and the good times, and that equated to a revenue objective that we had. And if we were able to manage that and keep our clients happy and them seeing the value in it, it felt pretty good. And we also had them on contract. But contracts too, especially in the world of small business, sometimes are, they're not infallible. I mean, as companies fall in hard times, if they can't pay, they can't pay. And then you run into these cash flow problems. So I'd experienced all that. Yeah. And so I see that with Black Swan, and my hope was to, how do we mitigate some of that? So we really pushed monthly memberships, which was an amazing deal, $88 for unlimited yoga at any studio. Yeah. Which at the time we had, I think, maybe across all of our cities, maybe 10 studios. And it worked. So we were able to, build up the membership base and then, post acquisition from the supplement business, Black Swan went on this just, not hockey stick, but a very strong year-over-year growth. Went from well under 2 million a year to over 7 million a year. Oh, wow. In under 5 years, very 4 or 5 years. And we went from 4 studios in Austin back in 2020 to we'll have 6 by the end of the summer. We'll have 6 in Austin, and we have 3 in Dallas, and we have 3 in Phoenix.
Very cool.
And then we have 3 licensee groups who are amazing, a group in San Antonio, a group in Houston, a group in Denver.
Cool.
So our total footprint is just shy of about 20 studios.
Very cool.
And yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly thankful that the things worked out the way they did, I guess.
Well, I wanted to ask because, like, I mean, ironically, we're opening in Charlotte, but my next stop is Dallas, and then we're also looking at Phoenix too. We might just follow where Black Swan goes and open podcast studios. I don't know. But I wanted to ask, like, we're looking at the same thing you're mentioning, where you have like the San Antonio versus the Phoenix, who owns it, and then I know a lot of gym owners that will listen to this podcast are in the same mindset. Like, if their gym gets big enough, like, do I open a new one or do I franchise it? And like, why do you have a group in San Antonio that I'm assuming they get more of the revenue because, it's their business? Why are you doing that with them versus literally doing exactly what you did in Phoenix?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it was, the short answer is it was pre my time. So those license deals,
short answer is you didn't.
I didn't have involvement in it. Now, since I've been involved, we've, Aubrey and I have talked about franchise because it's license, which is different than franchise. Okay. So the license is, we're a lot more hands off. We have a lot less risk. The corporate entity does. We're not funding anything. We do a little bit, but that's more to create consistency across the brand. But we also take a much smaller percentage of their revenue for this license deal. So the license actually, I think, is a great marriage for us because we're still a small business at heart. And I would say, I don't even know how well equipped we have with the resources to be able to be more of a franchisor, which you get into now. Franchises, they're managing the real estate, they're managing all of the marketing, they're having a lot more control over everything that any franchisee does. And so there's a lot, now they earn more that way potentially, but there's a lot more risk and there's a lot more resource that's involved, and we're just not there yet. In Phoenix, could we have licensed that market? Sure. but my opinion of it was always, I'm a fairly conservative. I like having cash in the bank. I like to make sure that we're not overextending ourselves.
Yeah, like 80 locations in a year kind of thing.
No, yeah, yeah. And a lot of franchises will do that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They'll go raise a bunch of money and a PE firm will come in or something and they'll give
Mhm.
away some equity. And then all of a sudden they got a roadmap and,
Mhm.
and sometimes and they'll hit, but sometimes most of them run into problems.
Oh, for sure. Like
You know,
catastrophic. Like
you
it's
look at
just like,
F45 or Orange Theory or
yeah.
Pure Ball. I mean, oftentimes I have a lot of friends that have been on both sides, the
Mhm.
franchisor and the franchisee side. And at some point there's always massive, problems
For
that come
sure.
up.
Do you think that was F45's problem? Is they franchised too quickly or expanded too quickly or?
Um, I don't know enough about the ins and outs of where they went wrong, but
Mhm.
but from the little information that I've listened to one of the podcasts with the more recent CEO who came in,
Mhm.
and it sounded like they did get ahead of their skis.
Yeah.
They just, spent and they just wildly expanded and I don't know the ins and outs of because there are franchises where they open and then they close.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
people come in, they throw all this money at this thing, and then they can't
Mhm.
perform.
It's still a gym business. Like it's still, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I don't, no. I have a dear friend that was a franchisee for a very well known brand, and in the early days, it was fairly good for her, from
Mhm.
what I recall her saying. But then, as time went on, the franchisor became incredibly controlling and yet not offering the kind of support that
Mm.
she needed to help her business succeed.
Gotcha.
And then it just became this like resentful kind of relationship
Yeah, for
almost.
sure.
And
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
point where she's like, I got to get out of this.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, I'm not happy and all the
Mhm.
things. And the cool thing about a licensee is like they truly own, it's their LLC. They own this thing,
And it's mostly this your logo on the front, and then like
basically.
you're like, hey, you should probably do this kind of thing, or
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's a very simple agreement. There's a geographic limitation they have. I mean, they can't just go open anywhere,
yeah,
but
yeah.
within their market, they can open as many as they want.
There,
They get to use the likeness of our brand. The one thing that didn't exist before I came in because of some of the personnel things was any kind of coalescence between us, the corporate entity, and the licensee. They were at odds with each other
Gotcha.
for a bunch of reasons. But one of the things that when I came in, I was like, hey, we should get together and meet. Let's talk.
Let's be friends.
Let's share
Yeah,
like
yeah,
what you guys are doing, what's working,
yeah.
what kind of sales tactics or marketing things are you doing, or what's
Mhm.
your apparel, planning looking like?
Yeah,
And they're like, what? We don't do this. And I was
we
like,
don't
well,
talk to you guys.
yeah. And I was like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
can we?
yeah, yeah,
Let's start
exactly.
fresh.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so now, and that's important as a customer that comes into a Black Swan or your podcast studios.
Mm.
They don't know the difference of who owns it behind the scenes. They
Mhm.
see the brand,
For sure.
so it's important for there to be a level of consistency and familiarity.
Mhm.
Now, there's certain things that might change, like does a company charge the same amount in some small town in Mississippi compared to Hollywood?
Mhm.
Probably not.
Mhm.
Prices might be different,
Yeah.
but the feel and the vibe and the quality of the product or service should be the same.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things we thankfully were able to do with the licensees, is kind of rebuild this kind of trust with them. But for us, the going to Phoenix, I said, oh, we can get this percentage if we were to license it, or we can get the whole shebang of what we've been able to do thus far.
Yeah.
And, it was between Miami and Phoenix for us to get out of Texas.
Phoenix feels a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
Miami just feels like, because we get asked all the time for podcast studios in Miami, and I'm like, that just feels like a lot. It just feels like like a lot's going on there.
Yeah, and obviously, no matter how big or small the risk is, I tend to believe that Miami was a riskier proposition.
Mhm.
And after I went to both cities, met with brokers, spent a few days in meetings and seeing and understanding everything I could about the demographics, about how the city is, the type of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And Miami's a very like alluring
Mm-hmm.
place to be. But it's interesting, like a Black Swan will never be on South Congress, like front and center,
Mm-hmm.
or on, West 6th Street and like some hot, like we're, we're, we're always going to be second, third gen build out, couple blocks
Good
away.
parking. You know.
Well,
No, some do,
so
some don't.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's one of one of our pain points is
yeah.
parking can be, but because if we were to do that, and that's the Berries or the Soul Cycle or the
Yeah.
Nike like that's their model, which
Mm-hmm.
they also have dollars behind them where they can do that. But if you look, a lot of these studios, especially in Austin, struggle to
Mm-hmm.
make it work.
Yeah, yeah,
The margins just aren't there,
yeah.
and so yeah, we kind of know our place. And so when looking at Phoenix and Miami felt like it was like kind of the flashier,
Mm-hmm.
like a South Congress type vibe, no matter where you were. The pricing,
Exactly.
the cost, it was just astronomical. And so Phoenix was absolutely more manageable. And it's close,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now the other thing we learned during COVID, there are certain states that are pretty pro business kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and those that are a little bit more restrictive. And
Yeah.
so one thing we also made the decision on is, well, we're going to go where business,
Mm-hmm.
we can open without a lot of restrictions.
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
So that was another reason to explore Florida and Arizona.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then when you go to a new, and I want to get to on it in a sec, but like when you go to a new market, like how do you go about replacing yourself basically? Because like
Yeah.
obviously you can run Black Swan here in Austin and you can drive down the street if you really need to, but like you go to Phoenix, you don't live in Arizona, you don't want to fly out there every week. Like how do you replace Alex Earle? Because you kind do, and with 3 locations, do you kind of have to have like a mini CEO over there, or do you have like each location is independent kind of a thing?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in we're all replaceable, first
Okay.
and
There
foremost.
we go. There we go. There we go.
I think that
Yeah.
I'm also a big believer in allowing and building for autonomy in career paths and in people's job function,
Mm-hmm.
right? And um uh, you know, and I remember my dad used to say this, especially from a sales perspective,
Mm-hmm.
if you have an objective and it takes you 80 hours a week to get to it, it takes you 80 hours a week. If you
Mm-hmm.
can hit that same objective in 20 hours a week, then it takes you 20 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, like it would be great if you can be super efficient in that. But what we look for are people that, um, are they don't necessarily need to be one or the other. They just
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to understand what the job is and their responsibilities and get it done.
Okay.
And so when we look at these other cities we're in, we've built an org chart that has I like city managers is what we call them.
Okay.
But they are in a way like I don't know that a CEO, because CEOs, while can be pretty hands-on, also have a lot of the 10,000 foot
For
view
sure.
looking down, right?
Yeah.
And they're much more like boots on the ground, very much day-to-day ops.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a full-time city manager in each market
Mm-hmm.
that oversees the day-to-day with all of the instructors. They communicate daily with me, we have a regional manager
Yeah.
that oversees all the markets, but then also still kind of does one level above what the city managers do.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we have a brand marketing manager and we have a customer service manager. So it's funny, like some of this, we have like this very small core corporate team
Mm-hmm.
that has skills and job functions that will serve these other markets.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we'll have a city manager in Phoenix that, we'll get like Google reviews, or we'll get somebody emailing in about a question about their membership.
Mm-hmm.
The city manager in Phoenix doesn't deal with that.
Gotcha.
Our customer service manager, who's based here in Austin, does.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now she might work with the city manager on clarifying things from time to time, but yeah. So we found that model seems to work. It's not without its challenge. This is the other thing. Black Swan, we have hundreds of instructors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your ability to be competent in communicating and working closely with other people
Mhm.
can only go so far. That when
Yeah.
you get more and more people that are technically reporting to you,
Mhm.
that's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So
Well, and then, how do you divide your time between Onnit and then Black Swan?
yeah, that's a good question. So the Onnit gym situation, the backstory on that, we were, uh, just coasting along,
Yeah,
Black
yeah, yeah.
Swan, and then Aubrey calls me back in the fall of 2022. So almost 2 years, a year and a half after
Mhm.
Unilever came in and acquired Onnit Labs and
Mhm.
Onnit Gym,
Mhm.
Unilever called Aubrey and said, "Hey, we're going to shut this thing down."
Mhm.
Where or find somebody to take it over.
Yeah.
We're not in the gym business.
Mhm.
It's not making any money. It's never made money.
Yeah, yeah.
It's always been a great marketing tool. That's
Mhm.
what probably a lot of it what it
You got a
was.
bunch of influencers in there. They have the products everywhere. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah. It
sense.
was like the testing battlegrounds for the fitness equipment that On It developed,
For sure.
the content it created to then advertise to the customer.
Mhm.
It was a great loss leader.
Yeah.
But as a gym, it never really was tasked to become profitable.
Mhm.
Um, so Unilever, I think, saw that and was like, we're going in another direction with our marketing. We just, and it has a staff of 30-ish people.
Yeah.
And now it's on the verge of maybe not existing.
Mhm.
And so Aubrey called me and he said, "Hey, man, I think we can get the gym back,
Mhm.
but I want you to come in. I need you to run it. I want you to be the CEO. What do you think?" And kind of similar to like the Black Swan
Mhm.
time, I was like, "Dude, that's a terrible idea."
Yeah. You keep getting thrown these businesses that are like,
Well,
oh,
like the brands are
yeah,
amazing,
yeah, of course. Yeah,
but
yeah.
the
The
the inner
situation.
workings
Yeah,
of them
yeah,
were challenged.
yeah.
Not that they couldn't be sorted out, but it was, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I built that thing,
Mhm.
He's like, I remember when we first opened the doors for that gym in 2014. He's like, it's like my baby, like in
Yeah.
a way. And so I uh I said, okay, how about let me talk to On It Labs and like let me get their financials. Let me just do a little due diligence before
Mhm.
we just sign off and do a
Yeah,
deal.
exactly. Yeah.
And he said, "Great. Well, he was going out of town for like a month or something. And
Gotcha.
he's like, I'm leaving. Just let's do it. Keep me apprised.
Yeah, yeah,
Try to do it."
yeah,
I
yeah.
said, "All right." And so On It was great. They worked amazing with us to come to a terms that were as favorable as they could be.
Mhm.
Um, the gym was bleeding cash,
Mhm.
20 to 40 some $1,000s a month
Oh God,
in
so it's
loss.
stressful.
But
Yeah,
when Alpha Brain is, paying for the footing the bill, I mean,
yeah,
on it, we could back then, and then, I mean, even with Unilever, they still had enough margin to be able to,
for sure.
kind of justify it.
Yeah,
Um, but obviously, if we were going to buy it, that's a different story.
yeah.
We're not $100 million business or
Mhm.
$200 million business that can just afford these losses.
For sure.
Now it comes out of somebody's pocket.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing I told Aubrey. I said, "Aubrey, okay, here's the deal. This thing's, it's bleeding some money.
Mhm.
We can get it a good deal on it. Like On It is going to be very gracious in terms on us acquiring this. They kind of want to get off their balance sheet, but
Yeah.
just know day one, unless we clean house and I hack expenses,
Mhm.
meaning people, really,
Unfortunately, yeah, yeah,
because you can't hack rent.
yeah.
We're stuck with the
Exactly.
rent,
Exactly.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
but, and so I was like, I've looked through. I mean, maybe there's things here and there on COGS,
Mhm.
but I'm like, really, it's a pretty lean business. It just doesn't have the revenue to support the expense.
Yeah.
So we're going to be at a loss out the gate
Mhm.
and I put a whole plan together, a forecast, and I said, I think for at least 8 months,
Mhm.
we're going to run at a loss. It's
Yeah.
going to be somewhat significant from time to time.
Mhm.
And he said, "That's cool. I got it." I said, "Okay. All right." And he's like, "Oh, and let's renovate it too. Let's put the cold plunges in. Let's redo the sauna. Let's,
Yeah.
all these things." I said, "All right." And then, and we did it.
Mhm.
And On It so we entered into a partnership agreement with On It. We'd never, we weren't able to own the name. Unilever owns Onnit
to this day, or
to this day.
Okay.
And so, and I'll say it now because this podcast will come out when the news is already, I presume it will.
Yeah, I can hold it. I don't know. I can put it out whenever.
No.
Yeah.
We're changing the name.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, new name, new brand.
No fucking way.
Yeah, man. It's we've gone back and forth for months and months, and the new name will be Correct Fitness. Wow. Correct with a K.
Wait, why have I seen that recently?
Well, Correct Life is a new supplement line that Aubrey launched beginning of this year. So there was a lot of kind of this evolved into let's do this.
Yeah.
But it was always when we originally did the deal, they said, look, you have a license to use the name, and perpetuity, really.
Yeah.
But there are a few things you can't do. You know, you can't do online education because Onnit Labs sells online fitness education. You know, if you're going to open more locations, we're not going to stop you per se, but we need to be informed.
Yeah.
You know, there are certain permissions we would need.
Like
to
you
get.
Still kind of stuck a little bit to,
Yeah. The biggest thing was I saw down the road, years and years down the road, if we did, let's say, expand and open more locations or do whatever, and then we go, you know what, we're going to exit. We're ready. We think we got, you know, and somebody comes in and says, we want to buy this. This is great.
Yeah.
And we go, perfect. Just so you know.
Yeah.
We don't actually own this name.
Yeah,
we license it from Unilever Onnit Labs, but it's a great license and all that.
Yeah.
But if for something goes south or something, you know, they could terminate the license.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we'd have to change every sign and everything to something else.
Yeah.
So part of it was that let's get out in front of it. Let's change the name.
Yeah. Rip it off now. Like, before you have 5 locations.
Yeah.
You have to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Do it. Yeah. And so then it became, well, what do we call it? And a lot of names were brewing about for a while. And then it was, you know, Correct. Some of Aubrey's team at Correct, the supplement company they just launched, they said, well, what if we, you know, used the Correct name as part of it and do a partnership agreement with the gym and rebrand it, to Correct something. And so that became the discussion. And so, we've landed on Correct Fitness. We went back for a while. It was, it should be Correct Gym. Well, but we do more than
just... do more than a gym. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then it was, well, but on Google, you know, when people they're looking for gym, you know, it's like, well, that's a good
little teeny tiny SEO boost.
Yeah, but then we go, you know what? I think we can manage the SEO. You know,
exactly.
So Correct Fitness is what we landed on. And potentially later this week, the press release will go out. Some social media stuff will go out. We'll send an announcement to members. And
crazy.
We've
pre or post Sweatfest.
My hope is to get it out pre Sweatfest. The announcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have 48 hours.
Yeah.
I was like, well...
we have it all it's all ready. It's all locked and loaded. It's just a matter of, you know, there's timing of things.
Yeah.
You know, Aubrey's a notable figure. You know, he's been in the news recently for a lot of different things. And some of that, you know, I think if we can let that take its course. And so when we push this out, it gets the genuine attention it deserves. But so the hope is probably by right before Sweatfest. And then we start the process of physically changing it. So
crazy. By
late June, a new sign. We've already started to order all this stuff. So that's the thing, is we have to flip the switch of all the digital landscape of Onnit Gym to Correct Fitness, which is an undertaking.
Well, won't you be in the same situation with the name thing with Correct as you were with Onnit?
Yeah, it's a good point, right? Yeah, I know. Well, but the difference is the owner, it's the same guy that owns both companies.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so Aubrey is the majority shareholder in the gym, and he I believe is the majority shareholder in Correct Life, the
Gotcha. Okay.
supplement
I was just
brand.
confirming.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was
But
like,
they are two separate companies.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. But no, I know it's a great. I was actually we were kind of laughing about that because yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
well, it's kind of the same thing, but
Yeah. Yeah. At least internally owned at this point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And is there not any like, I just lost the word, like competitive,
Non-compete.
not compete. Thank you. Yeah. I lost it. Um, with Onnit, by now you're a supplement company also competing with their labs. Like,
Well, there were no non-competes when we did the deal to reacquire the gym.
mm-hmm.
There were no non-competes
Gotcha.
there. We established um, a shared services agreement between Onnit Gym and Onnit Labs. So there
Mm-hmm.
were certain benefits and perks that
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the labs employees would get from us and
Mm-hmm.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Um, but there were some non-competes for Aubrey
Mm.
personally
Gotcha.
after he sold on it. He can't, and I think one is still intact today.
Mm.
I don't know when it expires. I don't think it has much longer, but he can't go develop another nootropic, another
Gotcha.
alpha
So
brain.
it's like a niche inside the nutrition world. Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think he had some others, but
Mm.
they've expired.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, does it sting right now, the relationship between Onnit Labs and us? When I broke the news because I went and met with the CEO and said, we're going to exercise our right to terminate this license agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And, they were bummed to hear it. But then when I told them the name, they were even more
They're probably pretty
aggravated about that, because it's one thing to change your name to something else, but to then change it to the same name in essence as a supplement line that the founder of that old company started.
Yeah.
I can understand their concern and frustration.
For sure.
So we're working through that with them.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to find solutions so that we can mitigate the brand confusion that might take place.
Yeah. Wait, and do you think with how successful you guys have become at Onnit Gym, like Onnit regrets getting rid of the gym part of it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that the gym was something that, I mean, it's again in the scheme of things, Onnit Labs is $100 million plus company.
Mm-hmm.
You have the gym that back then that barely made $1 million a year in revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's 1% of revenue.
Yeah.
And so now, I mean, when we bought it, it was I think maybe generating just shy of $1 million, but losing about 1.5.
Crazy.
I mean, losing money, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. We turned it around the first year and we generated 1.5, and we spent about 1.5. So we basically break even.
Yeah.
Cash flow sucked. We still had like, payrolls next week and we can't cover it.
Yeah, Aubrey.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and I was like, I got you, brother. I mean, so gracious and understanding.
Yeah.
But the good news is those loans he's made to the company, we're now in a place where we can repay that.
Mm-hmm.
So first year, almost double the size, the revenue of the company, still break even. Second year of owning it, we do about 2.1. We also spend about 2.1. So we're like, shit. Okay. Okay. Well, now we need to find some separation.
Yeah.
So this year, third year, having the business under our belt, I think we can eke out 2.5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we're getting close to being at capacity and all the things where the quality of the service and the environment really starts to get jeopardized.
For sure.
But we'll gain some retained earnings that can be used to pay back loans, can also be used for the other big part of our plan is to open another location.
Yeah.
So by next year, if the financials are on point and on plan, then, and anybody who's listening, has any desire to get involved,
Yeah.
we'll probably go out and do a small raise
Yeah.
and look to open another location in Austin, smaller footprint.
Like north probably, or like
Yeah, or west.
yeah.
Yeah, kind of north or northwest or west.
Like Terrytown kind of, or like north.
Further, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I mean,
Yeah.
it's you know, it's what we don't want to do is cannibalize the current membership, right? So
Exactly.
we have to understand where they are and then, you know, how do we create that where they're two concentric circles that are just, you know, this crew is going to this one and this crew is going to that one.
I mean, I've even seen that, like our other studio down the hall, like this studio has taken like 30% of our other that studio because they like this setup more than the table setup.
Yeah.
I mean, so like these revenues are almost even at this point because we lost half our.
Yeah, but you hopefully have a net gain.
Oh no, exactly. Yeah. So no, we're good. So we're good there.
Yeah,
like it has grown collectively. We have grown, but like at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like, oh man, Studio One did better last month, and now it's doing a little worse. But then this was significantly higher, so so it's good.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I can't believe you guys are changing the name. That's I mean, it's yeah, you know.
It's wild. I mean, it's and it's also the timing of it is also pretty good with what's going on with Onnit Labs. Onnit Labs is discontinuing their fitness equipment. They're not manufacturing their fitness equipment anymore. They're kind of moving away from that fitness part. You know, they're softening. They may hate me for saying that, but I see the marketing and some of the approach and the touch points that they're sending out. It's kind of opening up the demographic,
like more health and nutrition focused.
Yeah, and just the like
as rugged.
Yeah. When you and I joke, I'm like, we're more on it than Onnit is
for sure. 100%.
When people think of what Onnit is, they think of some ridiculousness sometimes, right? Some wildness,
the gorilla kettlebells.
Yeah, some crazy cool stuff. And Black Swan's this way too. Both these companies they're in industries that are fairly common and of note. People understand what a yoga business is or what a gym is, but then you look at these two and you're like, these are fucking weird. You've got this yoga business with neon lights in it and murals and donation based, and the instructors have a lot of freedom in how they teach. And then you go into this gym and it's like this weird, not rave, but it's just weird. It's like you're at a Halloween party, you know, you go into a room and you know, what's this room? Because they're all so different. And so I've always been very proud, and I love the fact that when you're in these these ecosystems of our companies, it's not the path that you would typically see for a gym or a yoga studio.
Yeah, absolutely.
We kind of veer off and go our own way.
And I was gonna say too, like I mean, I did my first Fuck You Friday. It would have been like November 2023.
Yeah.
And then I look back at that, and I showed up to the class, and there was like, I don't know, 15 of us. We did our workout. Or maybe 20 of us. It was great. Came back like 4 months later. Okay, now it's like 25 to 30 of us. And then the gym's a little bit more packed. And then you look at, I mean, like I've been traveling for like a year, but I see the videos every week.
Yeah.
And the Fuck You Friday, there's like 200 people. I mean, obviously not 200, but like it's just hordes of people running through the Fuck You Friday workouts. It's just crazy. Like,
yeah, it's become a party, man. I mean,
it really has.
It's a terrible party. I mean, it's agonizing.
It's really
to do a Fuck You Friday, and you're right. It has. I mean, when we reacquired the gym, we had 180 members. We also had who knows how many people that just came in. That was one part of the business that was never really tracked. Like there was never any real seriousness in the front desk.
You mean like they would come in and buy a day pass, or they just kind of
like walk in?
Yeah.
Like it was like very like, hey, what's up? You know, you know, and when I came in, coming from just my business mind is I'm such a square. I'm like, well, how many people come through every day, every week? What's how's the membership trend been? How many day and not that we didn't, the data was not confident. It was not accurate. Right. And so I said, well, let's clean this up. First and foremost, everybody who walks through that door should be scanning their key tag or being checked in of some kind. Nobody should just walk right through. You know, and so we started to get a sense of things, and it lacked energy. That was, I said, so we did a membership, basically set up some membership options that drove volume. Because my theory was this place is so cool. If you can just get people there and give them undercut them a bit on the price, give them a good deal. Especially when we're renovating and there's construction here and there and all that, they're being patient with those changes. It all worked to get more people. So we went from about 180 members to, today we've got 800, around 840.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And yeah, those Fuck You Friday workouts, there will be, easily 50,
that's
60
crazy
people.
Well, they used to be free, which is how I joined, because like they were free. And then I was like, oh, this should not be free. Like, this is crazy. this is so sick. And then sure enough, a few months later, they were not free anymore. And then I was like, all right. Because I literally, because my problem is that I loved the gym, but I think I was at Lift at the time or Golds or something. Golds was like not the best, but like I would do my Monday and Tuesday workouts, and then I would take 2 days recovery to prepare for my Fuck You Friday workout.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I'm not going to switch, because like I only do the Fuck You Friday. And then as soon as you guys started charging for it, I was like, all right, you got me. And I signed up immediately. I signed up like immediately. So yeah.
Yeah, and that wasn't like, well, there was not like
I'm sure there was just a small little, but it affected me, and I was like, all right, I'll do it. And then I was way better. I lost like 20 pounds. Like I was way better for it. But like, that might have not meant anything to you, but it was just like, it was like the thing that got me to switch.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and it's what's funny too about Fuck You Friday is like, it's become pretty well known as like, oh God, all right. Like you said, like got to prepare for it.
Literally,
and you got to recover after and all that. There are a lot of other classes that are on the schedule, I'd argue are as hard.
Oh, for sure. I see them while I'm working out. Yeah.
Larry's core and conditioning, any number of Juan or Eric's classes, our barbell class. No, I mean, it's been great fun in the gym itself. The community has absolutely morphed and evolved in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It's what at one point the gym, maybe, I still think it's probably intimidating to a lot of people.
I would say so. Which is how it
most
is.
Most gyms are, right?
Yeah.
But the common thing I hear a lot is once people just give it a whirl, they go and try a class, they'll find almost immediately how supportive everyone around them is, how positive everyone is, how much attention the coach is attentive to them to ensure that they understand how, the movement and the safety of things. And so I'm super proud of just this natural kind of evolution in the membership base and it's this interesting hodgepodge of like, you've got your like jujitsu crew, and then you've got your like Rogan, we have a comedy mothership. We do a little partnership with them, and so their employees get a discount on their membership.
I've seen a lot of them.
We get a lot of that. They're great. Then you get your like High Rocks,
which is just like
blowing up. But then you get your crazy bodybuilders, or I'm not crazy, but like
you
lift a lot. And then idiots like me that try to lift like they're 20.
You're still doing it, man. You're still. I see the videos. I see you in the gym. So yeah. No, that you guys are absolutely crushing it. One thing I want to touch on is like events. Like I feel like what a lot of gyms don't do, like the Golds is the F45s, etc. Like they don't do events, and I feel like that's the best way to build community. And so you guys are doing so many events all the time. Like at this point, like how do you decide? Did you just never turn down events, or is it like you guys have 100 different events you're thinking of, and like let's do these couple of events, like
so we have they're classified in really two buckets, right? We have the events that we create, own, put together, plan the whole bit, like Sweatfest. And then we have third party events, right? Any number of people, companies come to us fairly often and say, we have a certification we'd like to host at the gym. Or we want to do this, special workout for, this group of people and rent the space. Or we want to, an occasion partner with us in certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And so what at one point was more of a like we were pretty open to everything and anything.
Mm-hmm.
We took a step back to one realize, well, okay, we should start to look at how can we monetize some of this.
Yeah.
Not that, but like if a third party is going to come in and want to host a certification, that's going to displace our membership experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a risk, an inherent risk we have by having a third party come in, or even our own events.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like you come into Sweatfest this Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
the place is going to have hundreds of people in there.
Mm-hmm.
If you came in, if I was a member and I didn't know that was happening, I just was uninformed.
You'd be like, what the fuck?
I'd be like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, no, exactly.
And some people, you have two reactions. Some people love it.
Mm-hmm.
They love the energy. Others are annoyed.
You'll get the occasional guy that like has his headphones on. He's like rolling his eyes the whole time trying to bench or something. Like, but
yeah.
I think that's how it is for like a Gold's. I think with your guys' gym, it's 99%. It's like, oh, I love this. This is cool.
Yeah. And I think naturally people who they kind of get the vibe of our culture and they're here for it.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. But I know we calendarize everything.
Mm-hmm.
We go, okay, here are the events that are ours. Let's put them on. We do annual strategic planning. We do that. That was one thing my dad taught me.
There you go. Back to
strategic planning for all the companies, and, in the fall to plan for the next year, and so we try to outline as best we can what we want to do.
Yeah.
And then Danica, who does a wonderful job on all of our events, manages a lot of the inquiries that come in, and we chat through them and we make decisions on, okay, is this something that is aligned, and is it not in conflict with another event? And so, I mean, no matter the business, it's the relationships that are forged, amongst the people is what makes everything. And so having events is an amazing opportunity for those connection points to be had.
100%.
And
then it also brings in the community that isn't paying for memberships at that point too.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I probably brought, I mean, just me alone, I brought in a handful of people to like a Sweat Fest or something like that. And all of a sudden, like I'll see them on the bike next to me like a month later, So it's like,
yeah. And it's not a, obviously it's a lead gen tool, right? Like we're not
going to disregard that.
I mean, there is that to it. That's part of the thought in it, but it's not the sole driver of why we do it. We do it to create memorable, I mean, more and more my dear friends and those I'm closest to and speak to are people that are either members in these businesses or work in these companies. It's familial, and so I think events, if you can manage them, massively important to do.
100%. 100%. Well, sweet, man. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this has been a great podcast. I'm excited to like get this out there once you guys have changed the name. But I've had you like on my list to interview for like a year. I wanted to reach out, and so I was waiting for the studio to be upgraded and all that kind of stuff. Right. So thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Cory.
Appreciate it, man. Sweet.